You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 129 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. With no new interviews lined up or speaker recordings to share, I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about a project that I'm currently working on. Our Bay Area Intergroup just had our visioning meeting, and I had talked about that in episode 128, Service Keeps You Sober, but it's a brainstorming session. We just had that last weekend. And one of the ideas that I threw out was to recruit help for the sexaddictsrecoverypod.com website. I've had a bunch of ideas on things that I wanted to incorporate onto the site, but my wife, who was helping me design it, has just been too busy to help out with that. So hopefully soon we'll have a team to help design and organize the website. In the meantime, I have a spreadsheet trying to keep track of all the readings, the topics, steps, traditions that were covered in each episode. Plus, I'm also cataloging any content warnings, the types of episode, be it a personal story, a group chat, or just me talking solo like this episode. Also community, COSA, intimacy and sexual avoidance, BIPOC, LGBTQ, etc. So those are things that I've been keeping together in a spreadsheet. In addition to that, I've been trying to keep track of the music that I've shared on each episode, which brings me to today's music and recovery topic. But before getting to that, I did pick out a reading from Answers in the Heart, and this is from September 19th. And I'm going to skip the reading at the beginning. Where are our resting places? Where are the free spaces where we find nurturing and peace? For some of us, it is within ourselves, a place where we live quietly, engaged in inarticulate creation. We go to that silent space because we are safe there. We find what we need to be replenished until we are ready to go into the world again. For some of us, the resting places are primarily outside ourselves. The earth, the sea, the mountains. We call this getting away from it all. But it's really going to something we need as much as we need air and food. We all will find a resting place in anything to which our hearts calls us. Music, a journal, books on recovery, solitude. We all need sanctuary, time to be recreated. Time to become reconnected to who we truly are. In the meditation, I will praise you, my God, for within my solitary sanctuary, you are always with me. So the reason that I picked out this reading was to talk about the resting place that I find in music. Music being a primary way that I connect with my higher power. I've talked on a number of episodes about my music playlists that I started to create when working on steps 2 and 3 to help find that connection. And that's what I wanted to talk about in this episode. But before I get ahead of myself, I did want to say that after all of the music that I play here on this episode, I will be getting to some listener email as well as some YouTube comments. So stick around after the music for those. So, back to my God mixes. When I was working on step 2, I had started making mixed CDs of songs that dealt with spirituality, recovery, or just something that I really connected to and vibed with. And I've talked about this on a few episodes of the podcast, and especially starting out on episode 9, which I will get to momentarily. Anyway, I started sharing these CDs with program friends and some of my family. Eventually, I made a catch-all playlist for my various iPods over the years, and a few years ago, someone asked me if I could share my playlist, but I hadn't set up anything on my new computer with the switch from iTunes to Apple Music and the switch from my iPod to the iPhone. So recently I've had a few program friends that had started sharing their recovery playlists with me, so that has inspired me to recreate my playlist to be shareable. Relating back to the visioning meeting, in addition to the list of songs played on each episode, I'm hoping to have a page on the podcast website to have shareable links for the recovery playlists that I've made. Over the past few weeks, I've had a few phone calls asking about how I use music as a higher power. A lot of times the playlists that I've made, they start off with an angry or upset feeling, a feeling of despair or something like that. And then throughout the playlist, the message of recovery and hope starts fading in. So I have ways of connecting different emotions that I'm feeling, whether it's sadness, anxiety, needing to let go of control, feeling the addictive impulses, things like that, moving from that into a place of inner peace. And so a lot of these playlists I make kind of pull you through a journey. Some of the other things, playing music, I definitely have a connection with a higher power when I'm doing that. When I'm working on creating mixes, that also brings me a sense of peace and a sense of purpose. Like I don't feel like acting out. So starting back when I was in 4th grade, I made mixtapes with my friends when we just had like a handful of records. And over the years, I continued to make mixtapes, and through college, I think I had talked about it on the podcast, making hyperactive music from hell mixes, combining metal, funk, rap, punk, techno, just anything aggressive. One of the things I really haven't talked about here, when I first got into program, I made a huge CD mix set of the history of thrash metal. And it was my first time using a computer in a healthy way after getting into program and needing to retrain my brain and how to use the computer in a healthy manner. It also had a lot of my addictive qualities in terms of collecting and categorizing and things. So kind of retraining my brain around that. But yeah, that was a series of CDs called Thrashology. And I even went back into the roots of metal and punk into that, and industrial and thrash funk. It's just got into this huge thing, but it was an outer circle activity that kept me from acting out. And so my spiritual playlist, the Halloween mixes, the Lazy Days, I've talked about Lazy Days mixes that I've made, talked about them on the podcast. I eventually hope to recreate a lot of those Lazy Days mixes as shareable playlists as well. A lot of the songs from my spiritual mixes and Lazy Days kind of overlap, but still those ones are more groove oriented rather than message oriented. So anyway, those are some of the ways that I use music to connect with a power greater than myself and to keep me from acting out. In addition to recreating a playlist for each of my God Mix CDs, I made a playlist that has all 200 plus songs from those mixes. Back on my old computer, I had all these songs plus a whole bunch of other songs that were spiritually connected to me. I had tagged them in such a way that I could easily make a smart playlist, but I don't have all of those files on this computer. They're on my external drive. Yeah, with so much music on the external drive, I haven't really taken the time to select and import the music that I want in my current library. In this new music project, I've been having fun going through Apple Music and adding albums into my library of things that I haven't listened to in a while. So in addition to my God Mix CDs and the playlists that I've been making, I also just made a playlist of all 300 plus songs that I've shared here on the podcast. And I've been messing around with settings on Apple Music, trying to set up an anonymous profile instead of my full name. So that way my new playlists just say Jason T, and I will be able to eventually share those on the podcast website. For this episode, I wanted to talk about a few songs from each of my mix CDs, which are now shareable on Apple Music. And hopefully I can get someone who uses Spotify to help create some playlists there. For Apple Music, I need to finish setting up my profile to make the playlist searchable. But as for right now, I've been able to share the playlist via text. On one of the calls I had last week, I had pointed to episode 9 of the podcast, I Came to Believe, Finding a Higher Power Through Music, to hear more about my journey in using music as a connection to a higher power. I really love the episode, but I cringe at the editing of some of those early episodes. Like this one, I didn't really have a recording to share, so I decided to fly solo. In hindsight, that episode was a combination of reflections on the retreat for the first 15 minutes or so, and I really should have edited that down. And then finally on to the music and recovery section. At that point in time, I hadn't shared any music on the podcast and was just learning how to edit music into what I had already recorded. I think when I was recording that, I had just planned on talking about the music and not actually playing the music on the podcast. So the first song that I played on that episode was the song Tempest by Tool, which I had just played at our virtual retreat, and this was back in 2021. Coincidentally, at our in-person retreat this year, that was the Tool song that I chose to play. And in episode 9, I only played a tiny little portion of that, but I did want to go a little bit further into detail of that song. It is a fantastic song, almost 16 minutes long. I only played the first 5 minutes of it, but it starts off with a beautiful guitar and percussion part in 21/16 time. The way I've always talked about it and counting it out is 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 6, which all adds up to 21. The original title of the song was 21. But yeah, I wanted to play a little of the intro. After the mellow intro, it just goes into this really, really heavy part, and this is what I played at the retreat. I wanted to read some of the lyrics of the first verse. Try to lull us in before the havoc begins into a dubious state of serenity, acting all surprised when you're caught in the lie. We know better, it's not unlike you. We know your nature, which a lot of us can relate to. Following this, there's just a beautiful, long guitar solo, a couple of them, in fact. But I did want to play one of the hardest parts of the song to play. It is a whole bunch of really, really fast triplets. When I first heard it, I was just like blown away, but love that. So many different parts of the song that I could play here, but yeah, I really wanted to bring it back to the intro riff, which ends up coming back about 10 minutes into the song. And so here's a little bit of that. And the song ends with the way it began. But yeah, just an awesome, awesome song. So wanted to talk about that in relation to episode 9 of the podcast before getting on to my music playlists. And with my God mixes, most of them I made in pairs. And the first 2 that I made, I've talked about the origin of the name Strength, Courage, and Wisdom from the India Ari song. And I talked about that on episode 9. And the second disc I made was called Everyday Sunshine after the Fishbone song. So a couple of the songs in Strength, Courage, and Wisdom I played on episode 9 and a few other episodes of the podcast. The ones I wanted to talk about on this episode was a song called Free by Vast. And I look at this as letting go of my addiction, that it no longer has control over me. So in the mix, I followed that up with Breaking the Habit by Linkin Park and then Feeling Good by Nina Simone. A little bit further down the list is the Depeche Mode song Personal Jesus as done by Johnny Cash. And I just love this. So this is a way of me recreating my higher power.
Reach out and touch faith, your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares, your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone to care.
Love the lyrics for that, and I really love Johnny Cash's interpretation of it. So with the mix Everyday Sunshine, I started it off with Bridge Over Troubled Waters by Simon and Garfunkel, No More Drama by Mary J. Blige, and then Anxiety from the Black Eyed Peas. Please take away my anxiety.
The anxiety, sane and the insane rivalry, paranoia's run me to my knees. Lord, please, 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 take away my anxiety, sane and the insane rivalry, paranoia's run me to my knees. Lord, please, 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 take away my anxiety. My head keeps running away, my brother, the only thing making me stay, my brother, but I won't give into it, bro.
I followed that up by Soulfly, and Soulfly factors into a lot of my spiritual mixes. And I believe I talked about them on episode 9 of the podcast. Max Cavalera, the singer from Soulfly, was also in the thrash metal band Sepultura from Brazil. And the song Moses, I really love the heaviness, but also the way they blend in some of the mellow stuff with kind of a reggae type feel.
What is wrong with human from beginning of creation? Brutal them are never gonna change. No, I Father give them life, that they turn to sufferation. Politics are worshipping them rain. They will never make to rule my life. No matter the text, I'm breaking and breaks. We child of humanity survive. No matter the text, I'm breaking and breaks. Oh, me, Moses, Moses, where are you? Tell the children what to do. Oh, I, Moses, Moses, where are you?
Towards the end of this CD, I had Fly High, another song by Soulfly on there. But yeah, right after that is my Sunshine song. So Follow the Sun, Keep on the Sunny Side, and Everyday Sunshine. So moving to my next couple of CDs that I made, Sweet Surrender, which was named after the John Denver song, and I'll talk about that momentarily. And the other CD was called I Am Blessed by Eric Bibb, and I played that one on, I believe, episode 14. One of the songs that I had in here was by the Red Hot Chili Peppers called Knock Me Down. And Anthony Kiedis, the singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, has had an ongoing battle with drug addiction. And in this song, it's basically a plea to his friends to help keep him sober. And the line that just kills me every time is hearing, "It's so lonely when you don't even know yourself."
I'm not feeling alive. If you see me getting mad, if you see me getting high, knock me down. I'm not feeling alive. It's so lonely when you don't even know yourself. It's so lonely. It's so lonely when you don't even know yourself. It's so lonely.
Fantastic tune. Some of the other songs I've actually played on the podcast: Thank You from Michael Franti and Spearhead, Gratitude by the Beastie Boys. There's a lot of reggae on this one too. Redemption Song, and this one was by Johnny Cash and Joe Strummer doing Bob Marley, followed by Ziggy Marley's Higher Vibrations. I also have One Love from Bob Marley on there, and Desmond Decker singing Israelites. But yeah, the title track for this CD was Sweet Surrender by John Denver. And in episode 9, I just played the chorus part, but I wanted to catch a little bit of the verse and the chorus.
And I don't know what the future is holding in store. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not sure where I've been. There's a spirit that guides me, a light that shines for me. My life is worth living. I don't need to see the end. Sweet, sweet surrender. Live, live without care, like a fish in the water, like a bird in the air. Sweet, sweet surrender.
Love John Denver. And yes, I've got a number of songs that deal with surrender, this being one of them. On to I Am Blessed. I started this one off with Crucify by Tori Amos, and I am such a huge Tori Amos fan. But yeah, this comes off of her Little Earthquakes album, and the mix that I chose from this was an alternate mix. But why do we crucify ourselves? So I wanted to play a little of that here.
Looking for a savior in these dirty streets. Looking for a savior beneath these dirty sheets. I've been raising up my hands, driving nothing in. Where are those angels when you need them? Why do we crucify ourselves every day? I crucify myself, and nothing I do is good enough for you. Crucify myself every day. I crucify myself. My heart is sick of being. I said my heart is sick of being. Chains. Oh, oh. Chains. Why do we
I absolutely love Tori, and this whole album is just a masterpiece. So also on this CD that I have played on episode 9, Come to Jesus by Mindy Smith, and King Without a Crown by Modest Yahoo. 10,000 Days by Tool, which is a devastating song, but a beautiful song. But the next song that I wanted to talk about is, I actually played a little snippet of it in episode 9, which is Patti Smith's cover of the Beatles' Within You, Without You. And I'm going to play both the Beatles and Patti Smith. So the Beatles version ends up on my next mix CD, which I'll talk about momentarily. I wanted to play the Beatles first. I remember listening to the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's album when I was growing up and just really loved this track. I didn't understand the lyrics, but I loved the sitar in it, and it just made me feel peaceful. Anyway, here is the original Beatles version, Within You, Without You.
We were talking about the lovely overture when we find it to try our best to hold it back with our love, we could save the world. No one else can make you change, and to see you're really only very small, and life goes on within you and without you.
And then here is Patti Smith's version. I love the arrangement here, and at one of the retreats we did in Santa Cruz, my friends and I, we got together and we did our version of this based on Patti Smith's arrangement.
Try to realize it's all within yourself. No one else can make you change. To see you're really only very small, and life flows on within you and without you.
Try to realize it's all within yourself. No one else can make you change. Beautiful. So yeah, the next few CDs that I made were more tripped out and meditational. I think I had originally called one of them meditationatudinal or something like that. I was looking to find songs that I could meditate to or really relax and vibe out with. And so CD number 5 that I made was called Namaste, and this was based on the Beastie Boys song Namaste, which is a fun, mellow tune. I started off the CD with Pink Floyd's Echoes, which is an amazing piece. But yeah, this also has some Lorena McKennitt, one by Stephen Kent, who plays Didgeridoo. I mentioned Soulfly before. On each of their albums, even though they're a metal band, they've done a song called Soulfly, Soulfly 2, Soulfly 3, and so on, which is just a nice, relaxed, mellowed out song. And so for this one, I used Soulfly 5. And then finally on to Enigma, Back to the Rivers of Belief. The instrumental part is something that I used for getting to sleep, and the melody playing is actually the same notes from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And then it gets to the lyrics, take me back to the rivers of belief.
Take me back to the rivers of belief. Take me back to the rivers of belief, my friend. I look inside my heart. I look inside my soul. I'm reaching out for you and hope one day we'll rest in peace on my rivers of belief.
And this is another song to remind me to reconnect with my spiritual nature. And paired along with that one, I did another CD called The Holy Trinity, Disposition, Reflection, and Triad. And this is named after the last 3 songs on Tool's Lateralis album. On the mix CD, I had all these 3 combined as one track. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk about in recreating these mixes for Apple Music, is having to break a lot of songs that were paired together. Another song on the Lateralis album, Parable Parabola, that's 2 separate tracks, but in my mix CDs, I always had made them one. And when I share that file on my Apple Music, it doesn't show up on other people's, because on Apple Music, it is 2 separate tracks. So this is one of the things that I've been going through, is just trying to find all of the streaming songs versus what I have in my music collection. So anyway, I based the title off of that, but I've talked about each of those songs on the podcast before and wanted to talk about Lorena McKennett's Mystic's Dream. And this is the song that starts off the CD. A long time ago, this is like one of the first songs that I had tried laying my guitar over, and had used a drum machine to add some extra percussion. Someday I hope to be able to find that mix. I believe it's on a cassette tape somewhere. But yeah, I just fell in love with the song, and this was the first Lorena McKennett song that I ever heard, and really, really love her music. Again, this is one that I can just drift off and meditate to. So this is The Mystic's Dream. That's followed up by a song from Dead Can Dance, and I've talked about them in terms of laying my guitar work over, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, this is the song Rakim. The vocalists Brendan Perry and Lisa Gerrard, and I love Lisa Gerrard's voice. Anyway, this is Rakim by Dead Can Dance. That was a little of the intro, and I'm skipping the verses and cutting to the outro of the song.
Turned in the garden.
hope to talk more about Lisa Gerrard and Dead Can Dance on future episodes. So the next few CDs that I made were kind of the opposite of the meditational side. I wanted the angry, aggressive side. And these were more for me and not necessarily for other program people. These are songs that I really connected with. And both of these mixes were named after Soulfly songs, the first being Inner Spirit, and the second one, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is Stay Strong. Some of the songs on Inner Spirit I've talked about before. I've played Down on the World Again by Social Distortion, Sunless Saturday by Fishbone, Up the Beach and Ocean Size by Jane's Addiction, Lateralis by Tool. But I started the CD off with A Therapy for Pain from Fear Factory and another song from Fear Factory later on in the mix called Resurrection. But yeah, this one was just really heavy, aggressive songs that I felt connected to. So some of these didn't really have a spiritual message, but it was something that I felt a vibe with. And there was a progressive metal band called Cynic, and this song is called Veil of Maya, and just love its aggressiveness and then its mellowness. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I have this on a separate mix of just aggressive songs that I can listen to on my own rather than sharing these with other people, and they may not find the same connection that I do. But speaking of Insane Clown Posse, who knew? Yeah, a bunch of rapping clowns, vulgar rapping clowns. Anyway, they have a song called Thy Unveiling. And such a trip about listening to their music is a lot of their songs have to do with finding the right and wrong in situations and worried about where their soul is headed. And it's interesting when they get to this song in their discography, they finally say that they do believe in God on this song. And it's something that I really vibed with. It's fucking goofy. It is vulgar, but yeah, I did want to play a little bit of that here.
About Violent J or Shaggy the Butterfly or 17. When we speak of Shangri-La, what you think we mean? Truth is we follow God. We've always been behind him. The carnival is God in May. Oh, juggalos find us. May the juggalos find us. May the juggalos find us. May the juggalos find us. He's out there. He's out there. We're not sorry if we choose. We don't care what happens now. We're not sorry if we choose. We swing our hatchets and we're proud. We're not sorry if we choose. Painted faces in the crowd. We're not sorry if we choose. The carnival will carry out. Yeah, he's out there. May the juggalos find us. And the juggalos.
So yeah, they have another song on my next CD called Stay Strong. But the song Crystal Ball is like one of the songs from Insane Clown Posse that ended a CD, and a lot of CDs in the late 90s, early 2000s had the hidden tracks at the end. And so I had edited that out for my mix, But if you go to Apple Music, it's got the full 22-minute track, which has a bunch of dead space and then a bunch of goofiness going on. And so I put that into my shareable playlist. And there were some other songs like that I was finding here and there. It's like, oh man, I had trimmed all that out in my edits. But anyway, I did start this CD with the Dead Can Dance song that I had laid my guitar work over. And I played that on, I believe, episode 23 of the podcast. And the song is called Kantara. So in my shareable playlist, I went back to the original since the version with me is not out there available for people to listen to. The first song on this mix that I wanted to talk about is Gave Up by 9 Inch Nails. I can remember reading the lyrics for this at one of the very first SAA meetings I ever went to. It was just after I had hit bottom and there was a lot of pain involved. And when I read the lyrics for the song, I really connected with that and offered to talk about it at one of the meetings that I went to. And because Trent Reznor's voice is so distorted in this song, I wanted to read out the lyrics. And starting from the sample that I'm going to play. Just watching it burn in my steady, systematic decline. Of the trust I will betray, give it to me, I throw it away. After everything I've done, I hate myself for what I've become. It took you to make me realize, it took you to make me see the light. Smashed up my sanity, smashed up integrity. Smashed up what I believed in, smashed up what's left of me, smashed up my everything, smashed up all that was true. Gonna smash myself to pieces, I don't know what else to do. I tried, I gave up.
Watching it burn in my steady, systematic decline of the trust I will betray. Give it to me, I throw it away. After everything I've done, I hate myself for what I've become. It took you to make me realize. It took you to make me realize. It took you to make me realize. It took you to make me see the light.
This song absolutely connects me to the pain of hitting bottom and coming into program, and it's a good reminder for me. Yeah, it's still an aggressive song that I love listening to. The song that I ended the CD with was Push It from Tool, and I used the Salival version. This is the live version. And I played the intro on one episode of the podcast where I had talked about meditation music. Maynard basically says, shut your eyes and go there. We'll meet you on the other side. And Salival isn't available for streaming anywhere. So I put the original album version on the shareable playlist. And this song is basically about arguments that arise in a relationship. For the live version, the verses at the beginning actually come from a short riff that is in the mellow part of the studio version of the song. And the guitar part is super faint. And they decided to take that little part and completely rework the song. And the Salival version is my favorite version of the song. It starts off so slow and builds and builds and builds and is just an amazing piece of music. So here is the Salival version of Push It. second half of both versions is roughly the same. It's mostly the introductory verses that sound different. And so I wanted to play a little of the album version. So I find their song Push It and Schism to be very similar in theme. Push It about the physical altercations and arguments that arise in a relationship, and Schism being the miscommunication in a relationship. So the next God Mix CD that I made is called Perfectly Flawed, and that is a song by OTEP, and I believe I played that on episode 11. And that mix has the songs Have a Talk with God and Dear God, both of which I've played here on the podcast recently. And it also has Addicted by the Devin Townsend Project, which I did play on episode 9 of the podcast. So right after Addicted, I have Emmylou Harris, Deeper Well.
Well, I did it for kicks and I did it for hate. I did it for lust and I did it for faith. Did it for need and I did it for love. Addiction stayed on tight like a glove. So I ran with the moon and I ran with the night, and the three of us were a terrible sight. They pulled to the bottle, to the gun, to the cell, to the bottom of a hole of a deeper well. Well, looking for the water from a deeper well. From a deeper well. I rock with a cradle and I roll with the rage. I shook those walls and I rattled that cage. Took my trouble down a dead-end trail, reaching out a hand for a holier grail.
Love that song. And again, this was one that I played at the retreat with some program friends. I hadn't heard the song before, and basically got a rundown of what I should do with the guitar. And as soon as I got home from the retreat, I found the song and just loved it. One of the songs that I end the CD with is Nova from V&V Nation. So lyrically, this song and the song that follows it on the mix have a common theme. Shine your light on me, illuminate me, make me complete. I look at that as a higher power moment, shining that light down upon me. So here is V&V Nation with Nova.
Shine your light on me, illuminate me, make me complete, lay me down and wash this world from me. Open the skies and burn it all away, 'cause I've been waiting all my life, just waiting for you to shine. Shine your light on me.
Love that. And I got this song from a program friend. So I did say that the song that follows this matches thematically, and it is Shambhala from Three Dog Night. How does your light shine in the halls of Shambhala? And I played that and Michael Giacchino's version of that on episode 18 of the podcast when we were talking about Lost. Both of them factor into the episode. Trisha Tanaka is dead with Hurley and the van. So anyway, love having those light shining moments that show up thematically in these songs. Moving on from there, the next one that I made was called I Came to Believe, and this is from the Johnny Cash song, and I played that on episode 9. And I did have a Tool cover on here by John McConnell of their song Sober. Tool's song Sober is the first Tool song that I ever heard, but I loved the vibe of John McConnell, so I chose that version, but that one, again, isn't streaming anywhere. So anyway, I did want to play a bit of Tool's song Sober, and I can't believe that I haven't played this here on the podcast talking about being sober. Why can we not be sober? Anyway, this is an extremely powerful song, and I relate to the negative self-talk in this.
I am just a worthless lawyer. I am just an imbecile. I will only complicate you. Trust in me and fall as well. I will find a center in you. I will chew it up and leave. I will work to elevate you, just enough to bring it down. Mother Mary, won't you whisper something but the past is done? Mother Mary, won't you whisper something but the past is done? Why can't we not be sober? I just want to start this over. Why can't we sleep forever? I just want to start this over.
Man, that is incredibly powerful. And then John McConnell's, and you can hear kind of the grooviness in this one.
I am just a worthless liar. I am just an imbecile. I will only complicate you. Trust in me and fall as well. I will find a center in you. I will chew it up and leave. I will work to elevate you, just enough to bring you down. Mother Mary, won't you whisper something by the past is dead? Mother Mary, won't you whisper something by the past is done? Why can't we not be sober? Just want to start this over. Why can't we drink forever? Just want to start this over.
Love that. Also have on here Bradley Cooper from A Star Is Born singing Too Far Gone. And it's a really short one, so I'll try to play what I can play here.
Please don't tell me I'm too far gone. I can't go on if I ain't living in your arms. Please don't tell me I'm too far gone. Set me free. Oh, set me free. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I came to believe while doing the podcast. And so a lot of the songs that are on that CD have already been on the podcast. And that was right when I was discovering Vardruna and The Who. It was before I had discovered Heilung. And so like the last 3 that I had just made over the past year or 2 have been more of the Nordic vibe that I've been listening to and sharing on the podcast. And the first of those is named Pray, after the Gojira song Pray. And I've played that on a previous episode. Again, I used the extended live version from Red Rocks, which isn't commercially available. So I went back to their album version for the shareable mix. On there, I also have the extended version of Norupo from Heilung from their video rather than their album track, so I used the album track. The first song from this mix that I wanted to play here is from Vardruna, and the song is called Solringen, which means the ring of the sun. The sun wheeled in its ring, the summer she sent, roosters crowing, time to rise for elves in the meadow. So at the beginning of the video on YouTube, there are some words right before the music starts, and it says, "In earlier tradition, the women of the household on a farm had the task of going out into the fields around midsummer and wake up the elves dwelling there with rhymes and songs to encourage them to ensure growth and good crops. These songs and traditions have now mostly passed into oblivion. New songs might wake them once again." So for the beginning of the song, they're tapping out the percussion on branches. I really love the song because of its connection with nature and the praying for a good harvest. Here I wanted to play a little bit of the beginning with that percussion, and there's a beautiful flute. And then also I wanted to play the vocal layers. Yeah, I really love this. And Vardruna just put out a new song called Herten, and I hope to be talking about that on an upcoming episode of the podcast. Some of the other songs I have on this are by Ivor, Using, Lacuna Coil, Pucifer, and The Who, and a song from a band called Orphaned. And I had found them on a world metal documentary. I think it was called Global Metal, and this song is called Sapari. What I found out about this is that the song was written in the 17th century and is a Yemeni folk song. And Orphan Land had made it into a metal song. Anyway, really, really love this. That is awesome. And on the CD, I followed this by Heilung's Tenet. I'd also made a mix called Leifeberg, Healing Mountain, based off the Vardruna song. Of the 12 songs, I think I've played 10 of them on the podcast. And so I did want to talk about the song by Myrkur. And again, Myrkur is another Nordic band. I believe they're Dutch. Emily is the front person for the band, and the band is partly black metal and then partly Nordic folk, and this song is called Ulvinda. Skuggene So it's a little bit heavy and a little bit mellow. I just absolutely love that. The last mix that I just made a few days ago is called All We Have Is Now, which is based on the Fishbone song. And again, among this CD, I think I've talked about every song here on the podcast. Ren, Tool, Heilung, Nabala, Neatland, Jonathan Hulton. But again, another Merkur song, and this one is Tor Il Helheim. And the album that this comes from is very Nordic folk oriented. In the beginning of the song, Merkur uses the Swedish herding calls called kulning, and I believe I talked about those on episode 60 of the podcast when talking about Heilung's Anawana, where Maria uses the same type of vocal styling. But I found a video of Amelie Merkur talking about kulning, and I wanted to play that as it segues into the song, and she does a much better job of pronouncing the name of the song than I do. Anyway, this is Amelie talking about kulning and then segueing into the song.
On this record, I experimented a little bit with mixing in the traditional Swedish-Norwegian herding call, also known as kulning, which is a singing style that the old, for example, farmer women would use to call their cattle back from the mountains, also could scare off predators, etc. But mainly it's something you sing to your cows or your goats, and they actually respond to it, and they come to you because they hear this very sharp, very crystal clear sound that travels miles and miles through the mountains. On the record, I used it as the intro to the song Tor I Helheim. Here's a little example of how kulning could sound.
En stolhøjt mandestemme under velvesten. Den var hovedpande og skyer dødning ben. Der så man heller troede, at var hun ved mod fod. Mod isen blå at skue, at underløbet blod.
I absolutely love this, and it is a much longer song with a lot more instrumentation that comes in a little bit later, but incredibly beautiful. And I also wanted to mention in the Netflix show Vikings Valhalla, Merkur, or Amelie Brun, does some kulning. I know she does it in season 2, but she was a part of both seasons that have aired so far. And back to the mix, I followed that by Kvitraven, or White Raven, by Vardruna, and I talked about that on episode 74, where I had laid guitars over that and made a heavier version of that. And the end of this mix is by Gojira, and the song is called The Chant, which actually has an intro called Fortitude. And for the shareable mix, I used the 2 tracks, but in my mix, those are actually combined into one track, and they just go right into each other. Sometimes when I'm listening on Apple Music, there's a split second in between the song, and it kind of ruins the groove of it. Anyway, this is the segue between Fortitude and The Chant. And then I wanted to play a little bit of the song and why it's part of my spiritual mix. The song is really based on refugee children from Tibet when China took over in the late 1940s, about them losing their homeland and all of their spiritual connections to the land. The message of this is to stay strong through hardships. And Joe Duplantier is singing, "Get strong, get strong." Listening to this, I feel that encouragement to keep going.
May this purple spring flow into your soul. Exhausting all these black holes inside. Wake up to the sound of boom. Let this chant ring in your bones and lift you.
I made a quick edit cutting out the guitar solo between the verse and "Get Strong." Wow, so that was a lot of music, and I'm hoping that I can edit all this together to make something that makes sense. So with that, I wanted to move on to one email that I just got today, and this is from someone with the initial K. "Hi Jason, I hope this email finds you well. My name is Kay from Bristol in the UK, and I've been in SAA recovery since November 2023. I found so much serenity through your podcast, and I honestly cannot thank you enough. I've started attending the Pacific Noon Zoom meeting in the last couple of weeks and finding it so helpful. The music you share is great. I was so happy to hear both NF and Falling Reverse in previous episodes. I also owe you a huge thank you for introducing me to Hailung. They are now my go-to meditation music, especially Anawana. I'm sure you are very busy and have many guests to schedule. However, I would be more than happy to be featured on the podcast and share my experience, strength, and hope with other sex addicts. Keep up the amazing work you do every day. You honestly don't know how many people you are helping. Thanks again, Kay." Yeah, Kay, awesome. I love this. And yes, I would love to have you as a guest. Again, we do have an 8-hour time difference, so let's see if we can work something together. I know you've been in the noon room, so hopefully we can work something out. But yeah, just thinking of Hailung and Anawana, I know they are about to release a couple of new live albums, one of them based on the 2021 performance at Red Rocks, and that one is called Lifa Jotengard. The one that they recorded in London in January 2023, Lifa Lindane. I'm not sure if it's going to be released at the same time or if it'll be later on this year, but I'm really looking forward to some new live material from Hailung and can't wait to hear it. Just this week, the video game Hellblade 2 finally came out, and that features new music by Hailung. Besides the theme song Scythe that I've played on an episode of the podcast, most of what I've heard in the game is ambient drumming, throat singing, and vocalizations, but I do hope they release this material as a soundtrack. Yeah, so thanks again for your email. Just thinking of scheduling people. Hopefully soon I'll be starting to scheduling guests again. It's been a while since I've recorded anything new. I do have a couple of recordings from the SAA and COSA speaker meeting that will be future episodes, but beyond that, I will need to start scheduling new guests and hope to have you among them. Speaking of future episodes, I am going to be doing a panel discussion on sponsorship, and my guest Sean from episode 91 had recommended for episode 138 doing a music and recovery panel called We Are the Misfits of Recovery, and the punk band The Misfits have a song called We Are 138. And Sean and I have a real connection with the Misfits there. So we'll be scheduling a panel discussion on music and recovery for that. So if you're interested, please give me an email at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com and I'd be happy to get you to be a part of that. I have a few YouTube comments that I wanted to share. One of them from episode 1 that says, "We have the opportunity to be better parents to our children than our parents were to us. We just need to learn from their mistakes." I so wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, in that very introductory episode, we were talking about how we were raised as kids. I have definitely been able to learn from my parents' mistakes in raising my kid and being able to talk about sexuality in a healthy manner. And the other comment that we had was from episode 123 featuring Allison W. from the SAA and COSA speaker meeting. And this one comes from my friend Julie. Wow, that was so helpful. I can be disappointed to read that your speaker is only a COSA, but I'm coming to believe that sexual addiction is more of a spectrum, varying from avoidance to acting out. People along that spectrum may find relief from different programs than I attend. Allison has clearly taken program principles to heart and applied them in her life. I can learn from her program. So awesome. So those are the YouTube comments there. Beyond that, we haven't had much feedback via email, just the one that I read. And so if you did want to provide feedback for the podcast, you can reach us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. And like I had mentioned earlier, if you wanted to get a hold of me, you can reach me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. Well, it's taken me about a week to edit this episode together, and I had a few things that I wanted to add here at the end. I finally finished setting up my profile on Apple Music, and my playlists are now available there. The easiest way to find them is by searching for my profile username, which is now Sarpod, SARPOD. That's the nickname that I have for the podcast, Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, or Sarpod. And then you can select playlists instead of top results, and it will show all of the playlists. All 12 spiritual mixes that I talked about on this episode are there, plus the single playlist that has all 200 plus songs, and that one is called SARP, Spiritual Playlists. The playlist that I have for all of the songs that have been played on the podcast is called SARP, Music and Recovery, and that currently has over 300 songs. And additionally, in my profile, I have my year in review playlist for the past few years, 2021, 2022, and 2023. I also wanted to mention that there are a few songs here and there that aren't available for streaming, and I talked about a few of them here already, but one that I forgot to mention is Ulvetime by Songleikur, and I bought that song through their Bandcamp. It's up on YouTube, but it probably won't be available to stream until their new album comes out later this year. And whenever it does, I will definitely add it to the playlists. And as always, I will be leaving YouTube links for all of the songs played in this episode in the show notes. So with that, I'm going to close out this episode. I thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, keep coming back. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.